Let's go ahead and find out if our player goes to the walls. If they hit the walls, then the game should end. We should die, right? So let's go ahead and figure out how to do that. Going back into our code, what we want to do is figure out what the player's position is every time they move, and if their position is too far or it's past a wall, one of the borders of the window, then we need to kill the player, end the game. All right, so like we talked about before, the coordinate system for the window is top left is 0, 0, bottom right is max x, max y. It's whatever size the window is. So it's going to change with the size of the window. So we could just pick some fixed values for the dimensions. We could prevent the window from even resizing if we wanted to. But as we saw here, we can get the size of the window pretty easily with get geometry. So what we can do is we can get the size of the window with this, and then we can look at the player's position, and if they are outside those bounds, then we can end the game. Pretty easy. So let's go ahead and do that. There's lots of ways you could do this, but for the sake of this instruction, for this tutorial, the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to make a small structure, and I'm going to call it a rectangle. Okay? Because we can reuse that. Everybody reuses their own rectangles. Anyway, here's another one. We'll just use ints for x, y, and we'll use ints for width and height. Okay? Pretty simple. Then we're going to use down here, I'm going to write another function that's going to say get the size of the window. Now these are unsigned ints, so we can do the same. We could use an unsigned int here. Got a little bit of a challenge there thinking about what those values are. What we can do is we could use a long, and then that way it'll be always larger, both positive and negative, than an int, even an unsigned int. And then we won't have to worry about it for now. Okay, let's go back down here to this. We're going to just copy this code right here. And since we're already calling this, let's go ahead and just write another function in our game display. It's going to return a rect object, a struct, and it's going to be get window size. Or let's call it get geometry. We'll just keep with the same. We're just going to put a wrapper around their function, geometry, the function that's built into xlib. That's after redraw. So we'll go ahead and put it after redraw here so it's easier to find. Game display, get geometry. Okay, I made a mistake. It's not void, it's going to be rect. Okay. All right. So we get a window, x, y, width and height. Great. Now we need to create a rect r. I'll call it return. Not the word return because that's a keyword, but return abbreviated. Let's call it r. How about that? r.x equals x, and we'll do r.y equals y. We'll do r.width is width, and height is height. Then we need to return it. Okay? Pretty straightforward. Get the dimensions, return it as a rectangle. We're not including some of this other information in this case. I'm just returning the rectangle size. We could do that. I'm just choosing to only return the rectangle size, the dimensions for the geometry. All right, so one thing we could do is up here we only need that, so we could replace this code with our function call as well. I'm going to leave it the way that it is for now. Okay, now that we can get the dimensions of the window, what we need to do is figure out if the player has gone beyond those boundaries. Okay, so every time we move, we're going to check after we handle an event. We could check in here, or we can check in the run function that calls handle event, right? So let's do it here. Check player bounds, right? That's kind of an event though. So you could put it either place. I'm going to put it over here for now. We could always move it. This is going to be a private function because I don't think anything outside of this needs it right now. Let me move these up to here so my variables are all together. Okay. And this should probably return a Boolean, right? Maybe we call it, instead of check player bounds, we'll call it is player within bounds, right? Let's go back and rename that one. In the run, here it is. Is player within bounds. And that comes after handle events. We'll put it after handle event down here. Boolean is player within bounds. A nice long name. Just get the geometry first. So we'll create a rect R, and well, we'll call it window. Window rect, right? And we'll call game display dot get. What was it called? Get geometry. All right, now we just need to check if it's inside. So we say if the player's position, which is stored in this XY here, right? If X is too far to the left, so that would be, remember top left is 0, 0, so too far to the left would be less than 0. So if X is less than 0, then we're out of bounds too far to the left. Or if X is greater than window rect, you know what, I'm gonna get tired of typing that out. I can see it already. So for now, I'm just gonna do W. This is a short function. I'm just gonna call it W. If it's greater than W dot what? W dot width? You know, I'm not sure if this is, yeah, it's relative to the Windows top left position. So yeah, it would just be the width. So if X is greater than the width, or, so that checks the left and the right edges. So if it's too far to the left, it'll be less than 0. If it's too far to the right, it'll be greater than width. If Y is less than 0, it's too far above the window. Or if Y is greater than W dot height, then we're going to have to return false. It's outside the bounds. Otherwise, we can return true. Okay? So then we come up here and we say, or we call it, if players within the bounds, well, we don't care if they're inside the bounds. We want to know if they're not inside the bounds. So if the player is not within inside the bounds, well, then the game's over. Right? So how do we end the game? I'm not sure yet, but we're going to go ahead and print out a message at least to say that it's too far out of bounds. Okay, so we'll say player out of bounds. Then at least we can see that it's working. Go ahead and rebuild that. Uh-oh, errors. Rect does not name a type. How is this possible? Main, line 28. Escape line 28 will take me to line 28. There it is. Rect, get geometry. It's probably because I put rect down here. So in order to use that, I need to say struct, like this. Let's just do that real quick and see if I get the same error. Yeah, still line 28. So you can see the error on line 28 went away right here. but now I still have the line 92 error, which is this one. So to change that, instead of, I don't like to write struct in front of everything. Instead we put rect up here, and then that names it as a type. So then I can use it like this, just like a class would be used. All right, let's rebuild that, and that's it. All right, let's run it. See if we get out of bounds errors. I'm gonna go to the left first. Still okay, we're getting close. Out of bounds, and then we come back in, we're back in bounds. Let's see if we go too far up. Out of bounds, good. Back inside, no out of bounds error. Let's go to the right. Okay, now you can see that we're out of bounds. The player is out of bounds. Part of it is too far to the right, past the border, but that's because we're not tracking the right-hand side of the player's square. We're tracking the top left corner of the player's square. So we're watching for where that top left corner goes past the Windows boundary. So if we keep going, now we see out of bounds. Once that top corner gets out of the Windows bounds, and we come back, and it's there. Now you did see that it disappeared right there. It's gone. It's actually right on the border. So it's not greater than the width. It's equal to the width. So we don't get a player out of bounds yet. We have to take one more step, and then we're out of bounds. Okay, and then let's check the down. Again, we're watching the top left corner. So the bottom will go out of bounds first, and we won't get a message. And then when the top goes out of bounds, then we do get a message out of bounds. Then we come back up, and there it is. Okay, so we are able to check if the player is out of bounds based on the top left corner. Okay, that's good enough for now so that we can get our out of bounds checked. Now what do we do when the game is over? The player should, if it goes out of bounds, we want the game to end. Okay, so let's go back and look at our game run function. You can start thinking about how you would handle this. You could pause it right here and think about that. Here's how I'm going to do it. We go to the run function, and we have this is running. I'm going to set that to false. So we will end the game. So we're going to say is running equals false. Player out of bounds. Game over. You lose. Right? And we'll set is running to false. Hopefully that'll end the game. And that'll be the last message that we see. Make. Okay, let's go to the left. Out of bounds, game over, you lose. It exited the game. Okay, let's try it again. Let's go up. Also works. Run it again. We'll go to the right. Out of bounds. And we go down. And that all worked. Okay, great. All right, so we can move it and we can detect that the player goes out of bounds. That's pretty good.